Welcome to the Livestream of Consciousness. The Livestream of Consciousness is on a quest to unravel the mysteries of existence. Every episode, we ask the fundamental question, what is consciousness? Is consciousness merely a product of our brains, or does it connect us to something greater? Explore the very fabric of our thoughts. Don't miss a moment. Expand your awareness and tap into the boundless potential that resides within you. Welcome to the live stream of consciousness.
Yes, welcome to the live stream of consciousness. You know what that means. It's Thursday. It's October 3rd. And wow, we're in October already. Have you felt the Christmas outside? Crispness, not Christmas. Hold on, it's only October. But the crispness, I woke up and opened the door and it was nice and crisp here on Long Island. At least it's fall. I know this show is all over the world. Technically, I guess you could be anywhere and the weather would be different. But what's up, Ninja Kitty? Good to see you out there as always. Yes, you made it to the live stream of consciousness. The one day a week I get to focus an hour on being here now. And I always get to do it with a great audience. Thank you guys for always being here. And if you're here now, just type in the comments #live. So I know that you're live. And if you're seeing the replay, type in #replay. This way the algorithm gets engaged a little bit. You help me grow the show and I can tell whether you're here live or whether you're coming back later. So I guess I'll say the same thing either way. So it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to gear the show towards it or not. I'm excited today. I have a guest who is somebody who I have never had a conversation with other than a few minutes right before the show. But people, Angelo, who's a viewer of the show, you guys have seen Angelo pop on in the comments, said, hey, I think this guy Peter would be a great guest on your show. I spoke to Peter. Peter is a shaman. I love that. I love people who have actually studied and kind of earned that moniker, that title, that essence. So I'm excited to meet him and well, why don't we all meet him together? Tonight's guest is Peter Michel. Welcome to the live stream of consciousness, Peter.
Thank you guys. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good, Michael. Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited. I know Angelo was very excited when he told me how he met you and some stories that you shared. I love the idea that people are now sharing these stories that they might not have shared because they might have been looked at a certain way, and people are starting to open up to the idea of other realms and other possibilities outside of the 3D that we've been taught. And I love talking about that stuff. So welcome to the conversation. Hopefully we can get pretty juicy. I don't know if you've seen the show before, but I usually start off with what I consider a basic question. Sometimes it hits hard. Sometimes people are right at it, but the answer always comes out and there is no wrong answer because it's about perspective. But that question is, what is consciousness? What are we talking about on the live stream of consciousness?
Well, that's a pretty challenging question. I suppose that's different for everyone. It all depends on their experience. It all depends on what they do, if they want to be conscious or not.
Absolutely.
So for me, I think it's pretty much consciousness is everywhere. You're at a level where you're connected to everything to the point where you can feel the small little changes that kind of trigger a huge reaction, just like a ripple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the commonality through all of the answers I get is that consciousness is everything, right? And that's what I've been seeing and hearing a lot on these podcasts. I love listening to such amazing conversations happening that are connecting quantum science and spirituality in the whole idea of everything is connected, everything is one. And as you were saying that, I kind of got the image of a good analogy of that, and that is like a painting, right? So there's a little stroke on a painting that is just one small part of the painting, and by itself it's its own unique thing, but together it's part of a big picture. And I think that's a good analogy for everything being connected. We're all part of this bigger picture. If I was to take a snapshot of this screen right here, and you're in your location and I'm in my location, it's still a part of this bigger picture of everything that's happening. If you back out, you know, everything that's happening in this moment is all a part of the moment. I guess that's how we're all connected in being one. So I love that. I love that answer. Um, and then the second question I have, which is going to lead me into who you are and what you're doing and how you became a shaman, is if you have a story or a moment that you can share with us where it became apparent to you that there was more to existence, you know, than kind of the story that we're all given and we go to school and all of this thing.
Right. Oh, I have such a perfect story.
Awesome.
I recall when I was very young, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years old, something within that range. And my parents were watching National Geographic. My brother, we were all kind of watching the show. We were both sitting on the floor. My parents were sitting on the sofa. And then they were watching the show about the rainforest and about the tribes that were there. And then all of a sudden, the cameramen go right into this huge open field, and you have this, to me, all I saw was this individual who was having these different people coming in, and he's doing whatever he's doing, and all of a sudden they walk out feeling completely renewed, healed. One after the other, after the other, after the other. This guy was wearing the headdress. He was dressed in all these different colors. And I recall standing up, pointing at the television, and I go ahead and say to my parents, I said, that's what I want to be. My parents looked at me like, oh my God, you're nuts. My brother goes ahead and stands up and says, what do you want to do? You really want to go ahead and dance around with feathers on your head and just kind of run around? And, you know, to me, I just knew. It just hit me. And so, of course, you know, throughout time, you know, like they say, if you need to find answers, they will come. So just like a student will always go ahead and look for answers. But when the answers come, the teacher will come. Mm-hmm. So for me, it just hit me hard. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So
something about what was happening there visually resonated with you, and you kind of, that's interesting. I mean, you never hear that, right? A young child like, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a medicine man, I want to be a shaman. That's really, really cool. No, I think that's, and so for you, that hit you hard, and you realized like there was something more than, I guess, Eastern medicine, right? Or no, we're Western medicine. I'm sorry, I meant Western medicine. Like, you know, but there was something more than what you grew up with. Like this was, you know, I'm imagining more of like an ancient vibration, right? Like something more connected to Gaia.
Oh, it's all connected. Completely.
Yeah. But I'm saying, I mean, it sounds like that was almost like at that age, you know, watching TV with your family, that was almost like something you hadn't seen before, and it hit you in that way. Like there was a vibration to it, you know, that really resonated with you. It sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, it hit me hard when I saw it. It just like, it was like a bolt. Yeah. It woke me up and realized, oh my God, you have always been someone I've always been connected. Always been connected at a very, very young age, and just kind of did things that I never understood why I was doing. And later on found out that these were trainings that I was never trained on, but did naturally. It just kind of came out.
Okay.
At a very young age.
So you're talking, I'm imagining you're talking about like some Reiki energetic healing kind of stuff, like, you know, almost, it's interesting what you're saying to me, because to me, I feel like a lot of energy work is intention, right? And it's almost like you didn't know, but those intentions were still there.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a really interesting story about that. The first time I kind of experienced that.
Well, let's hear it if you don't mind. I'd love for you to share.
So I recall my parents were on vacation, and I think they were in Egypt, and they were going shopping. And I was the kind of child who kind of just roamed around and kind of just wandered, drove my parents nuts. So I go ahead and I'm wandering around, and all of a sudden I see this old woman sitting on this really low stool in front of this little hole in the wall shop. And I go ahead and, I don't know, I was drawn to her. I just went ahead and went up to her.
Yeah.
And I put my right hand on her right shoulder. The woman goes ahead and turns around and says to me, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, your body's telling me this is where you hurt." And so all of a sudden she says, "How do you know this?" I said, "Your body said it." And so it guided me, and it was like a magnet. It put me right to that spot. And all of a sudden what she felt was, she said, the pain felt like a sugar cube. And what was happening is she felt my hand heat up really hot to the point where she felt this pain felt like a sugar cube dissolving.
Wow.
And then it dissolved. My hand got really hot, and then all of a sudden really cold, cooled it away. And I went ahead and I said, "It's done." And she says, "Well, what did you do?" I said, "What your body asked of me."
Mm-hmm.
And so the pain was gone. Finally, my parents run over and, finally find me. They go ahead and apologize to the lady, "Listen, I'm sorry. We've told them many times you can't put your hands on strangers and stuff like that."
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of looked at them and I said, "Well, if someone is suffering, how can you not help?"
Right.
So I said, "If you're a parent and you see a child suffering, are you going to help?" "Of course," they said.
Yeah.
So I said, there is no difference between me as a child and this old woman. No difference at all. And
How old were you when you said this?
I had to be maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, within that range.
So I've got to ask a question, right? I totally relate to everything you're saying. I love the story. I hear the story often. Excuse me, especially with the hands heating up, Reiki with people with Reiki, connections to Reiki, hands heating up. But you said, I did what your body told me to, and you told the woman, that you were drawn, and you told me that you were drawn to the woman. I'm curious as to what that was. What did that feel like? What did that communication feel like? And I almost feel like I know the answer, but I'm curious to hear that, because a lot of times people just kind of go tell these stories and it was like, oh yeah. What did that feel like? What was that communication?
So for me, when I saw this woman, when I meet anyone, I don't look at the physical body. I see a certain light. I see it. To me, it's a sphere, and around the sphere is this ring. And those colors fluctuate. And it also brightness changes with really everything, depending on what's going on with the person.
Mm-hmm.
As a child, when I looked at her, I saw a very dim light, and I felt like she needed to be drawn out. And that light drew me to her.
Okay.
So after I was done, it brightened up the light. So the sphere got brighter and the ring got brighter, which tells me that now everything is attuned and it's in sync. And now there's no longer pain. It's gone.
Wow.
So she went to doctors. She's spoken to many. They thought she was crazy. They said nothing is wrong with you.
Right.
And so, when my parents came, the lady was crying because she couldn't believe that she was no longer in pain.
Wow. Yes, she felt the pain leave. You said she felt it dissolve like a sugar.
Sure.
It's such an incredible story. And so what I was thinking that you were going to say was it was just a knowing, right? Like there's no way to describe sometimes a communication, but when you went to the woman as a 7-year-old, and that's what you said, your body is telling me I guess that's what you felt. right? You just
Sure.
felt drawn. And so what you're describing to me also, I mean, I'm imagining you're talking about somebody's aura, like their energy, because that's a description of the energy field that surrounds them. Um, and um, and that's really interesting that you said you saw it as dim and you felt like, okay, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to just help and touch her and help that issue, and you just knew.
Yeah, it's really interesting for me. It draws me in. It's almost like something's telling me this person needs help, and I have to go. It's not even.
Mhm.
It's a given.
Mhm.
There is no question.
Right. Interesting. That's awesome. That's really, I'm a little envious of that, right? Because I totally resonate with all the different modalities, whether they're metaphysical or scientific, right? I resonate with them all, but I don't feel like I've got a particular superpower other than I've connected with them all, right? I've had my
Mhm.
moments, and I believe I've spoken to many, many psychics on the show and in person who assure me that we're all born with these same kind of abilities. But I feel like some people, yourself included, you kind of had this natural, you were already tapped in. You didn't have to do any sort of practices, like you didn't have to learn how to meditate or anything like that in order to link up to these kind of abilities and understandings. You just kind of naturally felt it, and still do to this day. So that, I guess, led you on your path to becoming a Reiki master eventually. Um, but also, I guess, as a human being, right, in the 3D, you need to kind of exist within this system. So massage therapist, I'm imagining, was kind of like the way to make this into a job initially, without
Sure.
without having to like expose too much about the Reikiness. Or I don't know. I'm assuming a lot, Peter. Why don't you
I,
tell me your story?
you know what? It was really interesting. For me, I changed careers, and I've kind of held back and forth, back and forth. When family gets involved, and like, listen, this is not a career for you, etc.
Mhm.
So, as a child, you listen to your parents.
Mhm.
So throughout time, I listened, and then one day I was on the train, and 1 in the morning, and I see all these people around me, and coming back from work, and I go ahead, and I was looking at each one, and I was thinking, as I was looking at each one, I said, okay, this person, heart attack, this person, stroke, this person, cancer, this person, whatever else. And I was seeing all of this in them.
Mhm. Mhm.
I go ahead and say, I said to myself, I don't want that. So it's 1 in the morning. I go ahead and I look around. I said, no, this is not what I want. 2 days later, I go to my boss, hand my resignation. My boss looks at me like, you're nuts. What are you doing? You realize that you're really good at what you do and you're making great money. And to me, I looked at him and it just blurted out, heart attack,
Hmm.
right at him. And then he
Wow.
paused. He got really quiet and he said, why heart attack? I said, your body's telling me heart attack. And so he got quiet and I said, well, what's wrong? And he's like, I went to my cardiologist and he said, if I don't slow down, I'm going to go for a heart attack. I'm going to die of a heart attack.
Mhm.
And I said to him, I said, you really need to change. It's just going to hit you hard. And I said, heart attack. And I said, there's nothing else. That is the first thing that blurted out. And ironically, you know what? 2 years later, I found out that's exactly what happened. He had a heart attack and he died. And you know what? It
Wow.
was, so I thought that there had to be clarity.
Mhm.
Life is too short to just guess at things all the time.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you feel, trust it. Most people don't. And for me, I did. I stopped and I said, no, I don't want this. And I changed my career completely.
What do you mean when you say I don't want this? You mean you don't
I
want
didn't want the craziness. I didn't want the stress. I didn't want to come down with what all these individuals that I saw had in them, but they weren't even aware they had in them.
And you feel like this was attributed to the train, like taking the train to work and all
I
of
think it
that?
was a combination of everything: their careers, the stress, the train, the energy that people try to clear out, and half the time they don't. They're
Right.
overwhelmed, burnt out.
Yeah.
And it builds up in the system. So I've always thought emotion brings on physical.
Interesting. You know, I as you're saying that, I'm remembering, because I did work in Manhattan for a few years, and there was definitely an energy on the train. You know, when you took the train, of this kind of this overall exhaustion and rat race kind of energy. You know, I mean, I know that's what it was, and I know that's probably part of what attributed to that energy, but I think what you're saying makes so much sense now. Angelo's asking a lot of questions. I want to get to those questions, but I also want to know, like, it sounds like on the train, I'm just trying to imagine what you're talking to me about, and it sounds like you're looking around and you're kind of reflecting on everybody, and you're saying heart attack, cancer. You're getting these signals, you know, from that person's energy of what's wrong, but you're seeing a lot of, let's call it dis-ease, right? We call it
Yeah.
dis-ease. You're seeing a lot of that almost everywhere. I mean, did every person have that? Did you see any joy or any goods, any light?
You know, there are a lot of sick people in the city,
Mhm.
and there are a lot of people who just don't know what to do. And you could see it. It's, for me, when I walk down through the city, the energy sometimes can be so suffocating because you realize there's so much anger, and you could feel it just emanating at people. So you realize it just builds up after a while. And not only builds up, now that person is absorbing. So they go home, then they start becoming irritable, and they wonder why they're short with their families all the time.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
They're burnt out. They hit hard when they're on those trains.
Right.
It's exhausting. And
Right.
not only that, but energetically, the city can be really exhausting for people
So
who
is
are.
that what it was that you didn't want? You didn't want to.
Oh
You didn't
yeah,
want
it
to.
was.
Okay, so you stopped working in the city completely.
Yeah, I had to.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it.
Imagine walking down the street, and for me, I start feeling those people's symptoms.
Mhm.
So for me, that can get really draining.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. I feel exactly the same way. I don't like to go into the city for the same reason. You know what I mean? Just to kind of be in the city. What's interesting about that same concept is this, and I've used this story on the show before, is I do like going to the city for a concert, right?
Right.
Because at a concert, everybody's there with a specific intention to enjoy the music and have a good time, and the energy is not the same as it is on a train going back and forth to work, right? It's definitely a different moment in time and a different energy collectively, that you can feel, and I like that energy. That's a good energy. But I agree 100% with you, Peter. Like, just going to the city, you know, you can feel a lot of the people's energy. And so that brings me to one of the questions Angelo's got. He's got a lot of great questions, because we haven't even started talking about your shaman training and what that means. Even I'd love to tell everybody what that even means. But when it comes to Reiki and energy, Angelo's asking us: do you feel that you manipulate sound or frequency or both, or kind of let's get the lowdown on the connection between all of that.
I know personally for me, I I I figure out frequencies. I pick up, and the body tells me which frequency to tune into to go ahead and correct it.
Mhm.
So sometimes, and recently, really after the shamanic training that I had, um, I'll when I'm working on someone, I'll do sacred geometry, or I'll go ahead and I'll speak out three different numbers, and you find out those numbers are frequencies or angel numbers or something to that effect, and you find out. So I have one of my friends who does what is it? I forgot what it's called. but it's a certain type of medicine from India.
Okay.
And Ayurvedic, that's what it was.
Okay.
And while I was working on her, she starts laughing and she's like, I don't get it. Every time you read off a frequency or that 3-digit number, all of a sudden something releases. It's almost like it unlocks. And for the body, there has to be a certain pattern. So it's not just pattern, it's also each area has to be unlocked a certain way for it to completely open up, or it won't. So for me, I just kind of, the body speaks to me and the body says what it needs. It's almost like a child, and you hold this child's hand and you say, okay, show me. What would you like to show me? And it brings you to all these little areas that people know about but don't give attention to. And so it asks me to help, and I help.
Interesting. And do you work with sound at all, tuning forks and that kind of stuff?
No.
Bowls?
I do sometimes with crystal bowls. I really, with music, depending on the individual, I'll kind of know what kind of frequency and what kind of music I'm going to play for them, or sound that their body's requesting. They may not understand it, but their body is specifically asking for that frequency. And I listen and I follow through. So I guess you could say I kind of do manipulate the frequency and energy to a point where almost as if you funnel it down and fine tune it.
Nice. Awesome. So, okay. So massage therapy was first like your career. That was what you were doing in the city?
Well, that's when I left the city. I went ahead and I graduated from the New York College of Health Professions. And
okay.
That's where I went ahead and decided, listen, I just need to get out of this and do something completely different that I naturally did as a child. And now it just kept on calling me, and I decided to follow through with it.
So I guess my question is this: initially, that whole idea of the medicine man and what you wanted to do, and the touching people when you were young and healing them, did that start with Reiki, or did it start with massage therapy? I guess that was my question.
I think it naturally started as Reiki.
Right. That's more what you're
energetically.
That's
where it started. And then it transformed into the massage therapy aspect of it and the healing arts work.
Because that was more of a path towards a career, I guess.
Right, of course.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so now let's talk about when the shaman comes in, and what that even means. Angelo asked a good question. What's the difference between shaman work and Reiki healing? And I feel like they're probably related, but like, let's even start with, what is a shaman for someone who might not know what a shaman is?
A shaman really kind of taps into all the different realms, taps into the spirit world, taps into ancestors, taps into different healing aspects, and manipulates and is able to help change or heal that person or figure out what's going on. So doctors will send me patients that they can't figure out, and they're like, listen, we don't know what's going on. We've done all the tests. Let me go ahead and check out what's going on. So they give me this patient. I go ahead and I figure out, and the body speaks again. So massage therapy, Reiki, and shamanism's all kind of combined. So with me, when I do my work, it's completely incorporated with every session, and it's different with every session. So the shamanistic studies it's a very challenging thing. It's not easy. You do a lot of shadow work. You really find out about yourself. You need to find out about yourself before you can go ahead and start helping others, really. If you have shadows that you have that aren't resolved, then how can you ever help anyone else?
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I see. And that's what I wonder these days when you see so many people getting into healing. I'm a healer. Sometimes for me, and I don't claim to be a healer, but I do claim to be a little empathic. And I think sometimes for me, I see people out there who are saying they're healers, and I see I see that they're talking to themselves, right? The things that they're offering, the healing that they're offering, and the advice that they're giving. I'm like, I feel it. Like you said, you feel like, I feel like, wow, if only you would like listen to what you're saying, you would see exactly what I see. You
Right,
kind of
right.
see that, you see that pain that they're looking to heal in others. So what you said about, having shadows and needing to work through that first is super poignant, I think. But again, like, I guess my curiosity is like, where do you go to become a shaman? Like, if I wanted to study shamanism, what would I do? Like, what does that really evolve?
Well, how I found out about it was one of my best friends went to a shaman in the city. Her name is Olivia. And she goes ahead and says, I have a friend, my best friend, and he's a shaman and he doesn't even know it.
Hmm.
So she said, you really got to speak to him. You got to meet him.
Mhm.
You got to give him clarity. And for me, like you, I didn't know where to go. I just kind of knew, and I knew that it was going to come, and I left it alone because I knew the path was going to happen
Mhm.
just naturally.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's exactly what it did. So, I went and I saw this shaman in the city named Olivia, and she went ahead and looked at me, and the first thing she said to me was, "You have no filter." And I looked at her. I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Well, you're tapped in to everything, and that is why you can do everything that people say that you can do, and you're not even aware that you can do it."
Wow.
And so she goes ahead and says to me, she's like, "Well, you're unique, you're different.
Mhm.
I can't pinpoint what it is. Something about you is you're not from," she said, "you're not from here. You
Mhm.
are not
Mhm.
from this planet, I suppose."
Right. More different cosmic and origins.
So, I enrolled in, it was a 6-month training. I know when she was doing it, it was a 5-year program, and then they consolidated it into a 6-month program.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very intense, exhausting. You really find out a lot about yourself, and you find out what your limitations are and if you have any.
Wow.
So,
And is this like every day for 6 months? Like,
no, I couldn't do it every day. It'd be too exhausting for me. It was actually every weekend
mhm.
for 6 months, or
Oh,
every
wow.
other
Okay.
weekend for 6 months. And it was from 8 o'clock until probably like 7 o'clock at night.
Okay. So
Yeah.
like a 12-hour day
Yeah,
almost.
it was exhausting. A
Yeah.
lot of work and traveling, and that was in the city.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So Tamara, hello, Tamara, a name I haven't seen out there. Tamara says, the same kind of question. Can anybody be a shaman, or do you need to be gifted to become a shaman?
I think everyone can be a shaman. It all depends on if they're really connected to it.
Mhm.
Some people say they are until they start doing the work and they realize, no, this isn't
Like,
what I
I got
want.
some more
And
work to do
I don't
here.
want to do this work. It's too
Right.
intense.
Right.
I mean, if you want to do something, you got to realize nothing comes easy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you're going to work your ass off. It's all
Mm-hmm.
part of it. But I think someone who's empath has a more sensitivity to it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because you're going to journey, you're going to connect. And if you're not open to the aspect of spirits or individuals who've passed and you're trying to connect with your ancestors, really, in reality, they're around us
Mm-hmm.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's just certain people see them and certain people don't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. And Angelo is asking again. I'm trying to keep up with some of these questions. Is it the body talking, or being a higher force narrating a diagnosis? So when you hear, I guess somebody talking to you, or you feel like it's their body talking to you, I guess Angelo's asking, where do you feel like that's coming from?
I think it's a higher source.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think I become, when I do my work, I don't I'm more of a conduit. It just goes through me.
Mhm.
Sometimes I won't even, I'll go into just doing healing art that can be maybe sacred geometry. And it's fascinating. It's almost like energetic surgery. And you'll go in and you'll figure out the blockages. And for me, I go down to that cellular level and energetically change it around, or like I said, energetic surgery. And it's, and my hands just go. It's not as if I'm thinking about it. It just does it.
Mhm. Mhm. And I'm curious. I'm curious too, because I've been thinking a lot about thought itself, right? And that's where a lot of the magic is, right? Inside of your
Okay.
thoughts and inside of your attention. So when you just said you go on a cellular level, right? So when
Right.
you're giving Reiki and just giving this energy, is that what you're imagining in your head? Like, are you like taking yourself down to that cellular level and kind of being there, like in your head?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're going all the way down. So
Mhm.
for me, you're connected to a higher self. You're connected to a higher source, God, whatever people think it is. But really, at the end of the day, you are tapped into the source. So it's almost as if the higher source already knows what needs to be done, and the body responds to it, and the body agrees or not, if that's what
Mhm.
it is.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it just directs. It's almost like a chain reaction. Once it hits it, it travels through all of the cells.
Mhm. Mhm. Interesting.
So
Wow.
people feel
Uh,
they feel a lot of different things.
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, my girlfriend is a Reiki master too, and um, I had people do Reiki on me previous to that, where I didn't. I felt, there's a part of Reiki, like when you're preparing to get Reiki, you put yourself in a little bit of a meditative state. You breathe and you focus and you concentrate, and so I think there was just a natural feeling from that, but I guess I just never really felt like, okay, I felt that energy until Janice, my girlfriend, did Reiki on me, and I felt
Right.
that heat that you're talking about. I literally, I was like looking for the hot rock, like that she had warmed her hands up on, because
Right.
I'm like, you definitely warmed up your hands. Something like, there's no way your hands are just naturally that hot. And then also she had put her hands on the side of my head. Now I was laying there, my eyes were closed, but I felt like I had two big seashells, and I just heard the ocean on both sides, just just heard the sound, and it was so apparent to me, and so there was so much energy there happening, that I couldn't deny it, and it was just amazing. And so that's kind of what I imagine when I talk to Reiki people, that's what's happening, for you, in that energy exchange. And I see the wizard out there. What's up, Wiz? Brian is out there, and I'm clicking on his thing and it's not coming up. Oh, there it is. When you're healing, are you seeing energy flows or feeling energy flows? Is Brian's question.
Both.
Both seeing them and feeling them.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would imagine when you said you see people's auras all the time, I'm imagining that's a big part of you, is the visual feedback.
It's really interesting because I'll see the aura, but I will see. I call it their essence. I call it their life force.
Mhm.
And you can see, for me, you can see a person's life force. Say if someone's going to pass,
Mm,
their life force is extremely dim and almost black,
mm.
almost completely black, both in the sphere as well as in the ring.
Wow.
And it's almost like exactly their flame is being blown out,
Mm,
and you could see it, just life coming out of them, completely out of them.
wow.
And to that point, there's nothing you really can do. It's
Right.
the process has already begun.
Wow. So I mean, I'm imagining, and I mean, I've definitely heard stories, and you mentioned that you have friends that are doctors, and those, I'm imagining those are traditional doctors. traditional medical doctors who send their patients to you, kind of like, I don't know what to do with this person. I mean, that's, first of all, I think that's amazing. But I guess, what's my question here, really? I feel like there's such a value to what you do. And I guess like you said, it's interesting because it's like an ancient mystic thing. You could, like, what do you do? Put on a resume, like, oh, I can see people's life force, you know what I mean, dimming and brightening. But I feel like you would be such a value in a medical situation. I mean, like you said, when somebody's on a certain path and they're going to die, they're going to die, right? And
Right.
that's kind of what's happening. But I feel like you'd be just valuable to those diagnoses, and then, even if there is a possibility of, oh, this person doesn't need to die, you know what I
Sure.
mean, their light is dimming for a certain purpose, but it can be reignited, let's say. Is that the case? Can that be a
Sure,
situation?
absolutely. I guess you could call it like a medical intuitive.
Oh yeah,
You
there you
can
go.
also do that too.
Yeah.
So that's, I do that as well. I kind of scan the body, but naturally it's even to the point is really a person can walk down the street and it's second nature now, where I'll just look and I'll think, okay, well, this person has this, or this person needs this work, or whatever the case is. So you'll know, but it takes a toll. You need to know how to clear yourself, because what will happen is, if you're constantly absorbing all that and their symptoms, what will happen is you will absorb those symptoms and get them to yourself. It'll build up in your system. So you have to be careful with that. You need to know how to clear yourself. You need to know how to make sure that, listen, hey, you got to be careful. I mean, it's not something that you just kind of play around with, because you're dealing, number one, you need to ask permission once you start working with people's energy. Some people can't handle it. It's your body may not be able to handle the work.
Yeah.
So, that's a big thing. So I have clients who are psychiatrists and psychologists, and the patients who they're like, I don't know. You know what? I feel that you can help them. And, thank God I'm blessed that I'm able to kind of figure out what's going on, because I'll see the trauma. And the body just wants simple answers, simple yes or no answers. That's all it wants. And so, and that's what I wait. And they give me the answer, and the body's like, okay, now it asks me a second question. And usually it's like, is it necessary or essential? And if the person says no, then the body now is aware that it no longer needs it. And now it can dissolve it and get rid of it.
Nice. Interesting. Yeah. It's interesting what you're saying. And I mean, I've heard that from many, many, healers, about kind of protecting yourself and taking on the energy of others. And again, for me, I feel like it's almost like, take that down to a basic level, right? And every interaction you have is an energy exchange, an
Sure,
energetic
absolutely.
exchange. Even this conversation, right, that we're having, it's an energy exchange. And fortunately, for the moment, we're here with good intentions, and it's good energy, right?
Sure.
But sometimes if you have an interaction with somebody at a store, or you're driving to work and they cut you off, that energy exchange, you almost take that energy with you. And that's kind of what you're talking about, is just kind of being aware of the energy that you're taking on when you're working with somebody, and you're helping them by absolving them of that energy. Make sure okay, now I have this energy and I need to transform it, and either release it or transform it into good energy, and do the right thing with it. I guess that's a part of being a shaman, is understanding that aspect of that whole exchange.
Oh, it's a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, really important. And John Smith, I haven't seen John Smith here before. Welcome, John. Nice to have you here. Has an amazing question. Do you heal other things besides humans, like earth, trees, and water?
That's a very interesting question.
I love that question.
You can, yes. Everything has an energy. Everything can go ahead and be attuned. It all depends on how far along it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like if something is almost completely dying, it's really challenging to bring that back.
Mm-hmm.
It's already at its last stages, and turning around is just like that light starts turning dark.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more after that flame gets burnt out. There's no turning back
Well,
from
I'm sure there's a natural aspect to that cycle,
yes,
right?
of course. So
Yeah.
you can, I mean, really anyone can go ahead and you can use Reiki on plants. You can go ahead and send it good energy as well, healing energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the manifestation. It's all about what you want to give. So for me, I always say a prayer before I work on anyone. And I ask the guidance, and I ask that I can go ahead and give me what I need to be able to help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I go into what I do, and the body just responds. But it's pretty fascinating because people react differently.
Mm-hmm.
Some might shake, some might shiver or make noises. It really kind of, the whole point is the body has to let it out the way it's meant to let it out.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hold it back.
Mm-hmm.
And most people hold it back because they don't want to share it or they don't want it out.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's eventually going to come out.
Yeah. 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 That's interesting what you're saying there. And I guess we're kind of conditioned that it's easier not to, right? It's easier to hold it in and
Of
not
course.
let it out. And like I said, that's where people on the train, all those people you were feeling that dis-ease and that discomfort, and that tension, it's because I think we're conditioned to just kind of get on the hamster wheel and just go and ignore all of that other stuff, and that keeps us separate from ourselves. I heard of some great conversations lately um, about us all being one and all of this stuff, and about how really kind of advanced yogis and shaman, there is no positive and negative energy. There's no judgment because of that
Yeah,
understanding that we are all one, right? So you can't
of course. Yeah,
look at anybody negatively, because then you're looking at yourself negatively,
sure.
in a way. And I love that idea so much. And that really just helps me understand and kind of that moment that you were describing on the train, where you look in everyone's face and you kind of almost like you mind meld with them for this instant, and you see the total reflection in them of you, and the connectedness of you and them. I've had those moments, and those are great, like in the shopping center, like in the midst of the big noise, everybody's talking, and the commotion and the moment of life is just happening all around you, and suddenly you zone into a conversation that's happening between two people, and there's this moment of like, oh my god, I just connected, I don't know what just happened, right? But it's amazing, and I think for me, at least in my experience, those are validations of us all being connected, and kind of that knowing you were talking about, when you just know something, right? And it's just like I'm just given these flashes, of knowing that we're all connected, and that there's a it's all love, and there's a positive meaning behind it. You know what I mean? And that kind of keeps me going in those
Well,
situations.
yeah. I mean, I think it keeps that's what gives our sanity. I mean, imagine if we didn't feel at all, life would be really boring.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of those conversations I was listening to was it talked about how Earth and being a human is kind of one of the most unique experiences that a soul could have. It's like the most full of pain and pleasure and all
Of
of these
course.
diversities, and on other levels of existence, it's kind of like they're envious of that, because it's just so vanilla. I mean, I'm not saying it's kind of, they're not envious of it at all, but it's just I've been listening to so many great conversations, and it kind of, I think I'm going to take this show in some different directions when I process that all. But I love having these conversations with people, especially like you, who have this other experience. Now, Angelo's asking another question, which I think is interesting too, and it's, did you ever try ayahuasca or peyote? I think he's trying to say, he said coyote, but peyote. And did it help? And obviously, if it was a yes or no, a yes answer is, did it help apply? But I know that ayahuasca, and there are some other things that are becoming popular right now that do have ancient origins,
Sure.
are ceremonial, and seem to have properties to allow people who haven't had been able to connect, with other realms, to understand and connect with other realms. Is that something that you've ever tried or studied?
I've never personally used any of those psychedelic products, only because, at least with the training that I went to, our teacher went ahead and never really wanted to introduce that. She wanted to have us naturally be able to reach that level, which takes a lot more work, but
Mhm.
at the same time, you're a lot more focused.
Mhm.
At least that's in my opinion on it.
Sure.
But I know others who've used it and it was mind blowing for them, and it really kind of gave them clarity.
Mhm.
So it really kind of fluctuates with the individual, and
Mhm.
others who've taken it and they got the crap scared out of them because they realized, oh my God, this is what my soul really looks like.
Mhm.
Is it really this bad?
Mhm.
And clarity hits, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is bad.
It's not a enlightening experience for some. They
For
kind of
some, no, it
they
cannot. Some
withdraw
it can be
because they have.
mind blowing, and some it can kind of put him into psychosis. It can really kind of
Yeah.
really scare the
Yeah,
crap out
yeah. No, you know what? I love that answer, because I have been really fascinated by the stories that I hear about ayahuasca and DMT and these things, and even spoken to people on the show who've had experiences, and the experiences that they relay are amazing. And obviously, those are the people
Sure,
who had good experiences with it. But I personally have never felt drawn to, okay, I've got to go fly to Peru and try this right away because
sure,
my soul needs it, right? I feel like, that's like you were saying at the beginning, everybody's different. Everybody's journey to whatever they're supposed to be is different. And for some people, maybe that's a part of their journey. And
hmm
even like you said, where some people have a bad experience with it, I personally agree with the philosophy that everything happens the way it's supposed to,
right,
and even if it seems like it's something extremely awful, there's a reason for it. There are lessons to be learned. There's good to come out of everything. So I personally agree with that. So even if somebody does have some bad experiences, maybe that's going to show them at some point, you know.
I'm sorry about that.
No worries. I didn't say, okay, everybody turn off your phones at the beginning of the show. I usually do that when I'm on set at work. I work and we produce podcasts, and I make sure everyone's got their phone. We record them and then edit them later. But this is live, so I can't edit that out. But that's all good. That's all good. Um, I listen, Peter. I'm glad that we're able to talk, and I love your story. And I guess where are you now? What are you doing now? I mean, I know the answer personally because we've talked about your website. And I didn't put it in my banner. What's the name of your website? I'm going to put it in the banner now. But that's how people can
Sure,
reach you and get massage therapy, Reiki therapy,
absolutely.
shaman, advice, or whatever you might need to administer. It was art of massage,
It's Art of Healing, Massage, and
art of
Bodywork.com.
healing, art of healing, art of healing, massage, and body work. And we will talk after the show about that, because
Sure.
I was actually poking at it a little bit today, and I want to help you finish it up and be able to take calls and schedule people. Art of healing, massage, and bodywork.com. I'm just saving my banner here. Scroll across the bottom, and there we go. If you want to reach out to Peter, that's where you can reach out. His website's, it looks good. It's in progress. We're going to work on it and fill it up with some of the great things that he does. And if somebody does get in touch with you, what would somebody contact a shaman for?
Oh, everything really. Um, a shaman really kind of hits all aspects,
Mhm.
down to disease, all the way down to issues with the mental health,
Mhm.
even down to past life regressions and clearing out and cutting cords and
Mhm.
limpias, which are clearings for people. So it really is a very, very in-depth um, ceremonies that you got to do to go ahead and really kind of clear out an individual. So it's, for me, I kind of, it's almost like a one-stop shopping for me, because I really incorporate everyone's well-being and every aspect of it, not just the physical, but the mental, the emotional, the energetic, and also spiritual.
Mhm.
So it really is completely, and you need that. You can't just
Yeah.
work on one and not have the other.
Sure. Absolutely. I see Jennifer Rose out there. What's up, Jennifer? Good to see you. Yeah, so I mean, it covers, I've always said, to me, spirituality, a lot of the things that practices and different conversations I've had remind me very closely of therapy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Somebody going to therapy. And so I mean, like, again, even depression, right, is something you would say, okay, I want to see a
Absolutely.
shaman, and a shaman can help me figure out
Yeah.
what is it? Because I think physical ailments, I think mental ailments, I think I think everything, and that's what I talk about in the show, is energy. Everything is
Right.
energy, and I think that's what I would say is a shaman is somebody who really understands energy and
Yes.
how it affects us on all different ways, on all different levels, physically, mentally,
Mhm.
spiritually, energetically, um, everything. And Angelo is telling Michelle, you're just in time. Jennifer, you're just in time.
Right.
Uh, um, but I love your journey. I would love to talk more. I almost feel like I want to get to know you and have some better questions for you. I feel like we just barely scratched the surface of who you are and what you do. I know Angelo, when he was telling me about you, there were some amazing stories of synchronicity and different experiences that you guys shared, and I love that. I think that's what Angelo and I have in common is just telling these stories. He's got a couple of great ones too. I got to have him on the show sometime. But before we go, is there a story that stands out in your head of like just such amazing synchronicity that helps you, that you can tell people, and it helps them kind of be like, yeah, there is a greater power at work here.
You know, I, I had a death experience. So I recall my body was shutting down, and I remember the pain was really severe. And then all I remember is them calling the rapid response team. And all of a sudden, everything got really quiet. I look around and I wasn't in the hospital anymore. I looked around, I felt like I was floating underwater, and I could see the murkiness that was further out, but I could see the light that was around me. And then I look up, and then what I see is, it looks like when the sun hits the lights on top of the water and you're looking up from underwater and you see this glimmering bright light, all the sparkling lights.
Mhm, mhm,
I start swimming up to it, and I could breathe. I wasn't suffocating. And all of a sudden, when I got close to it, I got connected with this huge, it was this silhouette, this humongous silhouette. Either it was God, or I don't know what it was,
mhm,
but I remember going closer, and then I could communicate, but not through words. We just kind of knew what we were saying to each other.
sure.
And all of a sudden, I get engulfed by this. And the one thing that I felt was, it was very bright, but enough where, for me, I could see it didn't blind me,
Mhm,
but I know it was bright.
mhm, mhm,
I
mhm,
go closer, I get engulfed by this golden bright lights, and all of a sudden I felt this electric warm feeling through my entire body.
mm,
And the feeling I felt was complete unconditional love. You can't find it here. It
mhm,
is not in existence on this planet.
mhm,
It's not capable, for at least my thoughts on it. It's not the same. It is a very different. It's as if no matter what you have ever done in your life or how bad it was, did not matter.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing mattered. And the only thing that you had to give was joy. Just give joy to others. That's it. Even
Right.
you being present is joy for others.
Yeah.
And for me, I remember saying, I can't leave my daughter because she was just born.
Mm.
And so I remember before, when I was completely engulfed by this light, I felt like, wow, I'm finally home.
Mm.
I'm home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying, I can't leave my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She was just born. I have to. And then that's when I came back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look around, I'm back in the hospital, and I'm looking around at all these people. I'm like, what are you guys around me for? I'm fine. Nothing's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, do you realize that your body completely shut down? And did you realize that you didn't, you weren't even aware? I said, okay. My daughters would stop me from being for me to continue on.
Mm-hmm.
That's what stopped me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or at least I was given a second chance.
Right.
And I came back and I was healed. I didn't have any pain. I didn't have any problems. The doctors were like, well, what's going on? How is that possible?
Mm-hmm.
I said, you guys need to get off me. That's what I said.
Wow.
I said, I'm fine.
That's crazy. That's crazy. What's so amazing to me is that story and the commonality of that story. I love hearing stories when they get to the part where they're like, I felt this unconditional love, right? Because I disagree with you that it doesn't exist here. I think that's where we're headed. I think that's what we're trying to become. I mean, I agree with you that it doesn't exist here for the most part, but I don't agree that you can experience it. I feel like the few experiences that I have, even the one you're describing to me, you did experience it and you were here, even though you feel like you were somewhere else. You were here. And the few experiences I've had, I feel like they're like a microsecond, and then I also feel like they're an eternity. And I do feel like I've experienced that unconditional love. I do agree. Like I said, as human beings, I feel like it's very difficult for us to express that and to
True.
understand it. But I think as souls, I think we do understand it, and there is a knowing and there is a connection to that unconditional love. That's it is difficult to maintain, and kind of share. But I do think that's our mission. I think that's your mission. You know what I mean? When you go heal someone, and you're trying to elevate that light and bring that light up, that light is the unconditional love.
I try my best. What I do is when I work on anyone, I do my best to give that same exact feeling of that unconditional love in all my sessions. I want them to feel what I felt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is what I want them to experience, because without that, how can they ever really feel? They can't feel love if they don't know what it is.
Absolutely. And Jennifer Rose says, I've experienced that in a different way. If people only knew how precious they are loved.
Very true.
And that I mean, that again, that's the commonality I see between all of these modalities, right? Is that healing. So for instance, a psychic medium, right? And it's just so funny to me when people are like, oh, they're not real, this and that and the other thing. And then I go and I experience a psychic medium and I see them do a reading and I see them healing somebody. I've made the joke before that I'm kind of like I'm addicted to it. I love being around psychic mediums healing other people because I share in that energy. I feel the healing that's happening to that person. And I also am aware of the healing that's happening to the medium, right? It's just this energetic exchange. And like you just said, like that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to give that same unconditional love to people. I think that is, again, even though I'm not a practicing medium or anything, I think part of my mission is to let people know how easy it is to be love instead of being fear and being that energy that's on the train, that thing that we are conditioned to be. We are. It's unfortunate, I think, that we're conditioned to be these things that take us away from that unconditional love and that oneness, right? We're conditioned to feel like we're separate. We're conditioned to feel like, this fear and all of that stuff. And fortunately for people like you, Peter, and people like Angelo and Jennifer Rose and all the people who are out there watching right now, we understand that how important love is and how important it is to be love and to just give love, and that when you give love, that it's being received.
Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
that's the best thing about it, is the world needs a lot of love. And Angela says he's not a medium, he's a large. And it's funny, Angelo and I have been relating a lot in our journeys, because we both are so connected to these conversations and these ideas, but we're just kind of like, well, what am I supposed to be doing, and I mean, I know my answer. I'm here, I'm talking to you. I love bringing this to people who might never have heard your story, and now your story is on the internet, in the archive. They could go to my YouTube channel, and if they click on it, they'll hear your story. And I think what's cool is, as I was saying before, everything happens the way it's supposed to be. I think that archive is supposed to be there, and somebody will click it one day who will get the right thing out of it, and there you go. Our purpose will be served. That for this particular moment, I think that for ourselves, we've served the purpose in our moment. Peter, I can't thank you enough for being here and telling us your story and sharing it with us. Do you have any words of wisdom or love that you'd like to share with my audience before
I do.
Oh, awesome.
Okay. Everybody just needs to remember that everyone needs to be appreciated, loved, and accepted, because no one in this world, they can't live without that. Life is too short. Savor it, because you never know when you're going to meet that person in a good or bad situation. So why not give love in the beginning, so that way they remember that you gave them love. Even the simple act of kindness, picking up something off the floor when someone drops, something simple, or giving a bottle of water for someone who's thirsty. That's it. It's not complicated.
Absolutely.
The simplest act.
It's the little things. And Jennifer saying yes. Lily is totally agreeing. Absolutely, Peter. Awesome. Thank you so much. And Ada is out there. She's saying thank you, Peter. Thank you for showing up.
It was a pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And I just want to say to you, because you've said this to me a couple of times, and I don't know if I've said it back. I probably have, just because I know myself, but I appreciate you. I really do appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. I appreciate you being who you are and contributing those things to the world that we so desperately need right now. And I'm excited to work with you on your website and all of these other things, and establish a good relationship with a like-minded person, somebody who is obviously heart-centered and lives through that instead of through ego. So
that's one big thing. Humble. Stay humble in this world. That's one thing that people are lacking. They forget that at any time you can lose it.
Yep. And we don't own anything. Nothing is ours, right?
And everything is temporary.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter, thank you so much. Don't go away. I'm going to put you in the green room. I just want to say goodbye to my audience, and then I'll talk to you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for being here so much. We'll see you soon. Oh, wow. I got to take a deep breath and decompress after that. I love this so much. I love having these guests on my show. I love having these conversations. I love seeing people that I love showing up in the audience. Even when they don't, I still love this moment. If you haven't been here before and you showed up because you're friends with Peter and you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe. Please just make a comment, do something that will indicate that you've been here, because YouTube likes that. It tells YouTube and social media and whatever that you like this stuff and you want more. And it encourages me to come back and do more, even though I know I'm probably going to be here next week. I do know that I have a week coming up that I have the Long Island Gala that I've been working on. So I do a lot of website work and stuff, and I've been working on the Long Island Elite Gala, which is lie.org, liegala.org. If you're interested in checking that out, it's a fundraiser thing. It's a corporate thing, but regardless, I'm just mentioning it because I'm not going to be here on that Thursday, which I believe is the 24th. But thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for being here, Angelo. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Ninja Kitty, for being here. And thank you, Jennifer, for being here. I appreciate you guys so much. I will see you next week. Let me just pop up here and see if I do have somebody lined up for next week. I don't. I do have a psychic medium lined up for the 17th. We'll see who I get here for the 10th. Angela was saying maybe I want to get John on the show, who was watching, who's also a healer. So let's see if I hook up with John. Maybe John will be here. Ada A, you are very welcome. Ada's out there saying thank you. This has been the live stream of consciousness. I do totally appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. And I will see you guys next week on the 10th. Peace.